This episode of Vintage Stormfront Freaks has been previously recorded. I want to welcome Reed Stough. So he's the managing partner for Rex Game Studios. They are the makers of Storm Quest, which is a storm chasing video game that is in production. And so first off, welcome, Reed. Great having you on.
Reed.
Yeah, Reed.
Hey,
Reed. Rudy. Oh, wait, no. Wrong movie.
I don't even know what you're talking about, Brady.
Rudy, I was on the Rudy channel.
Wow. Didn't see it. Anyway, so Reed, I do want to say this because I'm going to do a quick shout out to the individual. One of our listeners brought you to our attention. Now, I was aware of you guys, but this was a good year or so ago. One of our listeners from Twitter, Storm Chaser Nick, actually brought up the fact that, hey, we should invite you guys on to give us an update on where you're at with the game and all that kind of stuff. So before we get into talking about the game, I guess, tell us a little bit about your personal weather background, because I think you're kind of a weather geek like the rest of us. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely so. I grew up in Indiana, like I said before earlier, and you had brought up. When I was I think it was around the blizzard of 78 in Indianapolis that really kind of transformed me into having a desire to know more about weather. And ever since then, I just dove into it head first and I was in school, I would do reports on weather. My teachers began to hate me because every report I turned in was on weather and they couldn't read them and understand them, but that's how I got A's. So, and then
whatever it takes.
When I was yeah, exactly. Then once I was a teenager and I could drive, I actually volunteered down at the weather service at the airport, which was just awesome during the summertime, and especially when the storms would come in the evening time, and I'd stay late at night. My mom would get really upset because I stayed out really late. And then I would do some storm chasing while I was there in Indianapolis, and then eventually I moved to Phoenix, Arizona, where I'm stationed at now, and where our offices are at. So yeah, I've been fascinated by weather for a long time. I do not have a degree in meteorology, but I'm like a sponge. I like to listen into what people are talking about and try to absorb what different things. I've learned a lot, since when I first started, there was no internet, so it was all books and everything. Every book you could get your hand on to try and learn as much as you possibly can. And I don't know about you guys, but I always look for the books with the greatest pictures. I was never much for a reader very well, but yeah, once I just started moving more and more into it, and never really could. At one point I was going to go for a degree in meteorology, but I always struggled with trig for some reason, and I still struggled with it. So I just decided, you know what, I don't think I'm going to do really well in this. So I was back in the days when computers first started coming into the home and everything, and that's where I started learning about computer programming. And
it's hard to do trigonometry on a slider rule. I agree.
Well, they didn't have those back in those days. It was when dirt was just being found. But no, it was. Yeah, I was failing miserably. I could do calculus, but I didn't handle the trig very well.
I guess give us a little. Give us the story and the history and the birth of this whole Storm Quest video game idea.
Sure. Well, it all started probably about 5 years ago. The other managing partner, Tim Fuchs, and I sat down, and we're a small firm. We have about 5 people that work for us, and then we contract to some other developers that help us out also. But we started talking about our primary business is in the flight simulation area, and we actually develop a lot of environmental type products for commercial and for the public consumer-based flight simulation. And so we were talking about the fact that we really would just love to get into the game industry, and but we didn't want to reproduce something that's been out there before. We wanted to do something really different, and we both had an interest in meteorology. And so forth. And we just decided that this would be a cool idea And so we just started talking about it and starting to kind of put the things together. And we partnered up with another storm chaser. Unfortunately, that didn't quite work out very well. But we were getting to the point where we were about ready to announce the whole thing publicly. And we eventually didn't announce the whole thing publicly. And this was about 2 years ago. And we were beginning to assemble all the pieces to begin to start development of this game. And lo and behold, when we announced the name of the game, we got a nice little letter from a lawyer. And basically there was another game out there. Originally, the game was supposed to be called Storm the Game. And there was another company out there that was developing a game very similar to that with the same title but not the same premise. And they had already released. And we had gone through the process of actually trademarking the name and had been approved and everything by the federal government. But because they did a press release a year before we did, they won the case. So we actually had to change the name, and after about a year and a half of negotiations, and so we had to change the name and all that stuff. So that I actually am kind of glad that it worked out that way, because Storm the Game's kind of boring and dead, and Storm Quest sounds a lot more ominous. So I think it just sounds better. And actually, I attribute that to my wife. She came up with that name, and I just thought that was perfect. So both Tim and I agreed on that. And so we've actually been in the process of working on the game now. We've got a couple of developers that are working on it. And we're actually partnering up with a school here in Phoenix with students that will be, again, helping us with the game also. So we're excited about it. It's still in its infancy stage. The biggest thing right now is we're working on what we call Project Wakita. And what we're doing is actually modeling the entire city of Wakita. And I don't know if anybody's been into our forums or not, or been on our Twitter account or our Facebook, but we've shown some pictures of it. And these are just some preliminary concept pictures right now. But we're in the process of actually modeling every aspect of that city. And that will be our first entry into the game itself, kind of our proof of concept. And then from there, we'll build upon the game. So that's kind of where.
So Reed.
Yeah.
So walk us through. So we get, because I do some gaming from now and then. So walk me through. So you get in the game, and you may or may not have this figured out yet, but what do you do? Do you start out like with a car or something? Do you start out with some supplies, or how does the game kind of start?
Well, that's a good question. We've actually been batting around a couple of ideas. Primarily, the main game aspect of it, or the main game flow of the game, it's very similar. I don't know if you've ever heard of World of Tanks at all, or
oh yeah,
yeah. It's kind of similar to that, but you start out with a basic chase vehicle, and we've been kind of batting around the idea of everybody starting out with a rusted out VW. So it's kind of junky and everything, and then from there you have the options of you get like a certain amount of funds and so forth that you start out with, and so you can do some upgrades to it. You can buy some equipment, some radar equipment, or you can buy some different types of upgrades for the vehicle, upgrade the engine or whatever. And you start out with other chasers that are in the area, so it would be a massive multiplayer type event. And you start out in an area of that city, and really, actually, you would be on a bigger map is really where you would start, and then you would have a selection. You would be told some weather information up front about where there's a potential for tornadoes, and you have multiple cities that you can actually select from. So you get some basic weather parameters that tells you, this area has a likely chance for a possible tornado. So you make the decision from there on what city you want to go into. So let's say for Wakita is the one that you want to go to. And you basically start there. And you've got all these other drivers there. You start out in the parking lot of a gas station there, usually in the center of town or on the outskirts of town, depending on what we've got. And you're waiting for the storms to form. So you basically have all these storms building and things of that nature. You're able to partner up with other people there. And at that point, your goal is obviously, one is to communicate back to the virtual media that a storm is coming, or a tornado could be, whatever's happening. It's damaging winds, tornado or hail or whatever, because you want to try and save lives. That's one goal, because through that you get experience point. The other aspect is getting
by staying alive. Is that what you said?
Yeah, well, Yeah, obviously in a VW Bug, you don't want to try and drive into that, but with that. But yeah. But yeah, you're trying to communicate, make sure people are aware of what's going on. So there's the safety aspect of it there, where you gain experience points, and obviously that helps out. But the other aspect is also collecting data, and you're trying to get like pods in the way. And obviously, if you advance up in technology, maybe get a vehicle that allows you to go into a tornado, like what we've seen all over the media nowadays. So where you can collect data. So the more data, the more safety that you have, and nobody loses their lives in your experience that you're having, the more funds you get to advance down the road. Now, this is the first phase of the game. The second phase of the game is actually there'll be kind of like what we call a forecaster aspect. And this is where we have this virtual world that's going on. And the forecaster would actually make a forecast for the chasers, and you would work in tandem because our goal is to eventually model the entire open world scenario. Obviously, this is several years down the road, but that's our goal, is to move that direction. The forecaster would make a forecast based on certain parameters. He would communicate with you, and these would be live people, communicate with you about the potential of severe weather, and then you would position yourself, and you could work together as a team, position yourself in a certain area and wait for that storm to happen. And you're communicating back and forth. And then as you work together as a team, you gather more funds. And the key aspect of that is you want to be able to gather more funds because it allows you to advance your technology, not only as a forecaster, because it allows you to purchase real weather radars and weather stations that are mobile stations that are out there, but also, if you're staying overnight, you have expenses that you have to pay for. That's built into it. Your vehicle could break down. You have to pay for gas. Like if you're at the gas station and you forget to fill up, and you go driving along and run out of gas, that's definitely going to affect you. So
and beer money, right?
Beer money. Don't forget
junk
that.
food at the gas station. Yeah, junk food at the gas station.
So
cat food.
So there's a little bit. There's a little bit of because that's the challenge is when it comes to storm chasing. It's important to have the expense column on the game to add some realism, but the challenge is always having the income column. Where the hell that money is coming from? Because in real life, Cam, I don't know about you, but I would think that's always the challenge. Correct?
One time at band camp, I got really super.
Here's a good conversation that starts.
Wow.
So, side piece here, and I'm not talking about a chick. I just created my profile for this game, and I have a question. Why isn't my picture coming up, or does it take like forever for that to like update?
Are you on the forum right now, or?
I sure am.
You're on the. Okay. Well,
And when I click it, why does her picture come up for me?
See, oh mercy!
Kidding.
I need to take a pill.
Address that with our network I have to address it with our network administrator.
Well, I was just curious because I just literally just finished it because it took me like 3 hours to find the register button. So it could be just me and my misunderstanding.
Hey, we have a show going on over here, Cam.
Why she's so quiet?
After you're done putting your picture on, we'll
I'm good.
Million points.
So that's phase 2 and that was going to be my question, is at what point are you starting to get a little technical with the sciencey stuff when it comes to forecasting, as opposed to the game just telling you, hey, go here, there is high level of tornado potential?
Yeah, and that's something that's been really, again, that's something we've been talking about a lot internally, is how do we want to deal with this game? And we actually got on our forums and on our Facebook and on our Twitter account and asked people that have been following us for a while, are you interested in possibly like a campaign type thing? Are you interested in kind of just like a scrimmage type playing, kind of a sandbox type thing? Or are you interested in like following somebody like, Joe Storm Chaser or Jane Storm Chaser, and you follow their life through storm chasing? Obviously, as you can imagine, we got a wide range of different, ideas and stuff, which was good. We greatly appreciated it. So, I think the first aspect, the first phase of the game is like I said, it's very similar to kind of like a World of Tanks type environment. Not super complicated, not super geeky. But the second phase would be more toned towards those that have a little bit more understanding towards weather and so forth. But we obviously would try to make it so that, somebody's going to be the forecaster or of some sort, or the warning coordinator, so to speak. They would have an understanding. There would be some kind of training seminar or tutorial that they would go to. Originally, that was going to be our first phase, and we kind of thought, that probably would flop really bad out there. So that's the reason why we kind of switched roads there a little bit, because this is really kind of our big first game that we started to work on, and so we didn't want to crash and burn out the gate. So
is your competition
and all that can change?
Is your competition giving you like bad advice when you should put in a giant cat? Or something like that.
Oh my gosh, that would make the game amazing. Are you kidding me? Like you could have cats in the car with you. That would be kind of cool. Like they could be giving you like storm chasing advice, or I don't know.
There you go.
I pray to God we can get through one show without talking about the flipping.
Yeah.
You know what? She's right here, right? She's right here. Her name's Vader. She's beautiful.
So I think that's a good question, Reed, when it comes to competition, because obviously this game has been in the works for a little while, and by the sound of it, it doesn't sound like we're close to having it out. I guess what are your fears there when it comes to the longer you wait, the sooner someone else could come in and steal your thunder?
Well, that's always a possibility. I mean, competition is always a reality. We deal with that on our other side of business on a regular basis. The thing is there's a couple of aspects to this, and we've talked about this too as a team, and things might be changing after the first of the year with this aspect. But we've batted around. Obviously, our main core of business is through flight sim, and that's where we get our fundings from as a company. So everything we're doing on this storm pretty much is coming out of our pocket, so to speak, as a company. So we're pretty much funding that. If and the flight sim business doesn't go very well, then this kind of gets delayed a little bit. So our plan is to look into the aspect of possibly looking at private investors, or the possibility of doing a public campaign. So that we can move faster on this project. That's one of the things we want to do is speed it up over the next year and try and get it, at least the proof of concept, done by the end of next year. That's our desire and our plan. Obviously, the one thing I've noticed within this industry, being involved in this for the last 10 years, you can make a plan, but it usually never ends up being what you want it to be, because it's always changes. The technology changes.
Sure.
New things come out, and you just can never always plan for everything that could come up that could railroad your ideas and so forth. And like I said, we had about a year and a half there where we were stuck in litigation. We couldn't really do anything because of the fact that we didn't even know if we were going to have a game we could do. So the short answer to your question is yes, competition is a real threat to us, and it's very possible. I think we just have to take that risk. That's all it is. Everything's risk.
I like the parallels, Reed, to storm chasing, where it costs money to storm chase and the income is hard to find. To your game, it costs money to create this game, so you have to have something else to create the income inside your company.
Yes.
That's a real good parallel. So just quick question. So you talked about proof of concept. You said by next year. What do you guys have to do to create that proof of concept?
Well, like I said, our first goal is to, and what we're in the process of doing right now is to model the city of Wakita in Project Wakita. And so what that involves is we have to develop all the models. Obviously, every city, it's a pretty small city. It's pretty unique. It has some unique buildings and some unique aspects to it. And so the first thing we have to do is we have to build the assets. We have to model all the buildings. We have to place them on with the model, on the terrain and so forth. That involves texturing. That involves grass and trees and things of that nature. And then the next aspect is we've also been working on the weather engine itself. The weather engine itself is a pretty complicated component of it.
I would think so.
We pretty much have the cloud engine that we want to use. It's the effects that we're still working on, and we've been doing a lot of testing probably over the last 6 months on that. Now, we were able to do something really cool. We've been using a design tool called Maya, which is very, very popular out there, to develop tornadoes. We actually created some different multiple tornadoes using their dynamic. And what dynamic is kind of like a fluid. You've seen some of the Twister movies and so forth, especially Into the Storm recently. That came out. A lot of that, I don't know what tool they used there, but the tornadoes that they used there is very similar to what we're able to create with the tool called Dynamics in Maya. Unfortunately, that is so intensive performance-wise, you can't even use it in games. So we're kind of hoping that the technology will advance enough that we can actually use that in games. So we're going to have to settle for something a little less than that. So we're experimenting a lot with that because that's going to be really the key to this game is how do the tornadoes look? How does the lightning look? How does the rain look? How does the hail look? How does it sound? I'm very gracious. One of our followers, his name is Christian out there, he actually sent me a list of all the tornado sirens throughout his area. And all their sounds. So we have all these different sounds out. Yeah, I mean, it was like a list of maybe 30 to 40 different sirens. So I was grateful for all the work that he did for us. And so that helped out a lot because, there are multiple different types of sirens out there. So it's bringing all these elements together and then placing them within a game. And now you have to build the physics so that if a tornado or something hits a building, it damages a certain way, and it has to be able to recognize whether it's an EF0 to an EF5 type of situation, and you have to build those into the models. So there's a lot of, and on top of that too, you've got the technology too. You've got the vehicles, you've got the technology that goes in those vehicles, and the interaction between multiplayers and so forth. So for the proof of concept, probably will not be a multiplayer environment because involves so much work, but it's kind of our playground to bring in all these technologies and see how they interact together.
So will there be like dish soap, tap water, and a jar you can spin around or anything like that?
That's actually the tornado. We'll send that out.
All right.
So you just place that in front of the screen. And
that's right. It's like an overlay.
Yeah, exactly.
Reed, the other real question is, if I get into my car in the game and I don't have a vehicle that's built for managing a tornado, is it still going to let me drive into it? Because I've always wanted to drive through a tornado. So I think the game should let me do that.
I would encourage you to give it a shot.
No, but you got to do it in the video games so you know what's going to actually happen in real life. So
if it's a Volkswagen, it won't hold together, but it'll get great gas mileage, I hear, right?
Exactly.
What we've decided is we're seriously considering that if somebody were to do that, you would kill that character off.
Oh, I'm all for that. I'm all for that.
Instead of having
you got to have some
Go ahead.
You got to have some consequences.
Yeah, I think having, like in, Call of Duty, you get shot 400 times, you always respawn back to the place where you got shot. I don't see how realistic that is. I mean, I think if you're going to drive, I hate to say it, if you're going to be stupid enough to drive Volkswagen into an EF5 tornado, you're going to die. You're going to die. So, I think there has to be some realism.
So some quick questions on that. Number one, so you're envisioning this as a big multiplayer game concept?
Yeah.
Okay. And is this going to be kind of an I forget the wording for it, but an open
world.
MMORPG,
open world concept where you can So will this be? Do you guys know? You guys are any of you familiar with Grand Theft Auto?
I was just thinking that.
Will you be able to get into your Volkswagen and the damn storm chasers that you're always pissed off because they get the storm? Can you run them over?
Yes.
Can you
convert?
Love it.
One of the upgrades for the VW will be a Gatling gun.
No way.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you walk into an ammunition store, grab a gun, and go chase down that one storm chaser?
Chase the chasers.
Just a jerk.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think that's probably.
Yeah.
Dang it.
This, I'll tell you, Reed,
somebody off the road. I'm sure.
this sounds like a great game. It did when I first heard about it, and it does even more now while you talk about it. And I know all of us and all of our listeners are going to be excited to and are planning to hope that this thing makes it through and you guys can get this through. Is there a timeline that you can give give us and the listeners to give us some hope that this thing might actually make its way into our hands?
And a free copy.
Ooh. Xbox One.
Yeah,
I've
we'll
got an
beta
Xbox
test.
One.
I guess we can do that. We'll beta test.
Yeah, there we go. I'll tell you what, as long as I'm still involved with Rick's Game Studios, or actually whether that's the case or not, and that's no statement or anything like that.
Guys had a fight or something?
I'm going to quick go sell my stock tonight before we air this episode.
Yeah.
Insider trading going on.
Oh my god.
Yes. No, on a serious note, our plan, without divulging any kind of public information right now at this point, our desire is to seriously put a lot of energy into getting this project done, and that's one of the reasons why we're actually partnering up with the school to bring in some interns to help out with that. Like I said, we are a pretty small firm.
Bring in the free labor.
There's a lot of, yeah, well, and our desire is to bring in some interns and give them an opportunity to learn and grow in some areas, but as also hopefully gain some employees from that. So our desire is to move forward and get this project going. Like I said, our desire, and I've said that 400 times, our plan is to...
You have a lot of desire in that company.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of desire, passion, is to have this, hopefully a proof of concept by the end of next year. That is the plan at this point, but I can't have people hold us to it because I just don't know what's going to happen. We have a business plan in place, and come January 1st, we're hoping to... we're planning two possible directions, either seeking outside investment or doing some kind of public campaign through like Kickstarter or Indiegogo or something like that. Mm-hmm. We would like to have more assets together so that we can show people, this is a real project. This isn't something that's just kind of a fly-by-night type thing, that this is really happening. And that's the reason why we're kind of showing images now that things are happening, that we have been able to move on this, and we've not been able to do that in the past, but we've been able to do it more so now. And I think once we get some more people on board, we'll be able to advance even further along.
Our second guest we have on tonight is Paxton Calvenese, and Paxton, what I really found interesting is he has developed an app for iOS iPhones that is specifically for pilots to better interpret the weather. And it's called the WX24 Pilot app. And we'll have links to his website and things like that on our stormfrontfreaks.com that you can check out. But Paxton, first off, welcome. Great having you on the show.
Yay. Hi.
Paxton! So, Paxton, tell us a little bit, and this is what's great, is because Dina is a pilot, and obviously big weather influence, and obviously you saw a huge need, and I saw this myself on your website. And I'm not a pilot, but I saw visually what pilots have to look at to interpret a bunch of data and all that stuff, and how you've turned it into what looks like a very simple visual interpretation of the weather data. So tell us a little bit about that, and I guess where you got that idea.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me. It's great fun to be on the show. And I'm a pilot. I've been a private pilot for about 4 or 5 years. And obviously a big thing about flying is you have to check the weather. as part of the regulation. You have to check. You got. What I found was that there's a ton of weather information to check. You have your current conditions, you got the forecast conditions, you got en route conditions. At the destination, there's area air mets or sigmets, the pressure maps, icing levels, and there's a ton of information. And as we know, the weather changes all the time. So before a flight, I'll check in the morning, and then you check a little bit later, and you check a little bit later, and right before you take off, you check, and during flight, you check what's going on too. So it's really what the app does, and what I was trying to solve was to represent all this information visually. And the way I did it is I put, when you talk about weather, you're talking about time, right? They're inseparable. And so I put it around basically the weather around the clock, like around a 24-hour clock. And that was kind of like the genesis of everything. It just made perfect sense. And, looking back, I can't believe nobody else has done it. And really, kind of stepping back, I'm a data visualization guy. I've been doing in software development and a lot of data visualization. So it just made sense to me to kind of arrange the weather information the way I did.
So tell us a little bit, and the listening audience, what kind of weather information a pilot is trying to keep up on?
So you have the current conditions, which are called METARs, and that's issued at most airports, and they're good for 1 hour. Then there's a TAF, which is a terminal area forecast, which is a 24-hour forecast or a 30-hour forecast. I just show 24 hours. And that's the most detailed and can be the most complex. And that's what you saw on the website. You have this kind of cryptic alphanumeric text code that's also all the times are in UTC, which, then you end up doing a lot of conversion. And that, nothing about this was difficult. It's just kind of error prone and tedious to go through all these steps.
So you list this each airport. Is that how you set it up, so you can look up each airport's
correct
visual? Okay.
Right. And then aviation weather is very detailed. You get cloud layers, the types of, overcast, scattered, few, and the elevation of them, the winds and direction, gusting. It's very, very detailed weather report. Unlike the typical stuff you'd find on the default iPhone app. And then weather condition, weather, rain, snow, drizzle, and all that stuff. And then the loss report I represent is air sigmets, which are air mets and sigmets. So sigmets are like convective sigmets, thunderstorms. And these are kind of area warnings. There's turbulence, icing, which is obviously important to pilots. And these are all at altitude for in-flight conditions.
Paxton, I just got one question for you.
Sure.
Why do you hate Android?
No, I don't hate Android. Where do you get that from?
Go on. You've only said Apple and iOS like 10 times.
He's saying that because I guarantee you his phone is not an Apple phone. He's jealous. That's all.
I'm just trying to be
Haters gonna hate. Haters gonna hate, Maz. Haters gonna hate.
When the answer, if you have to have one, is that when you push out an app, you typically go to the iPhone first. That's where all the money's at. And then most of the pilots have iPads, at least. I do get a lot of Android requests, and I am developing a version for Android, but it's got to be, there you go. It's got to be valuable. It's got to be.
He's got an iPhone.
So Dina's a previous pilot. Yep, she knows. She knows. So it is. So your app works for the iPhone as well as the iPad. Is that right?
Correct.
Are they any different?
The iPhone's probably a little smoother. It was developed for the iPhone first, but it's pretty much the same stuff.
It's just
so
one's
Paxton,
smaller and one's bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. One's smaller, one's bigger.
Real quick, Paxton. So if in your mind, what do you imagine? Like, who do you imagine using this? Do you imagine like a pilot, like in flight, using it, or do you imagine like a pilot who's about to take off, about to land, someone at an airport? Who is your targeted person for this app?
And isn't it like texting and flying?
Yeah, you could do that. You'd be surprised how many pilots play get on their phones and commercial by ATPs play games.
Wait, really? Are you kidding me?
I have friends who
if I can't text and drive, then they shouldn't be able to play games and fly. That's ridiculous.
The dirty little secret is flying is so much easier than driving.
True.
There's not a
Paxton, can you even get a good signal when you're flying with that? I thought maybe with the phone.
Typically, so up to 12,000 feet, you can pick up a signal. So to answer your question, it's a pre-flight planning tool. Before you fly, you're required by the regulation to do all your research on the weather and route conditions at the destination and all that type of stuff. So you have that in your mind. During the flight, obviously, there's a lot of airplanes got built-in weather. They broadcast over the airways. So a lot of planes have got devices to pick that information up. Currently, I'm not hooked up into that. That'll probably be a future upgrade if things go well. I use it en route. I use it in flying because if I'm at flying at 5,000 feet, I'm typically get service and it updates. The weather reports come out the forecasts come out every 6 hours. So if a flight's 2-3 hours, it suffices for that.
Okay.
But as you go over a big city, you'll get the data pickup and it'll update.
Okay. So you plan on giving it to, go ahead, Dina.
Oh, sorry, Paxton, can you file your flight plan on your app?
Not yet.
That'd be cool.
Oh, I think there was a little hint in there of
royalty.
Future update.
I already had that idea.
Shark Tank. Got an investor.
WSI. WSI is my old company. It's part of the weather company. I used to work for them, and they're big in data. They got a lot of aviation stuff going on there.
This commercial moment was brought to you by...
Yes. But that would be somewhere...
There's a ton of features. It's always a struggle between developing a new feature and marketing it. You have to spend so much time promoting it, writing content, social media, all that stuff, and
podcasts, that kind of
IBM
crap.
didn't offer to buy me. So I'm stuck doing the work.
Well, I'll send your name over.
Paxton,
yeah, you do that.
So Paxton, I see there's a whiteboard behind you with looks like a lot of equations.
Yeah,
I know, the podcast can't see that.
My grocery list.
But it looks like some, pretty heavy stuff back there.
Those are just development releases, features I have planned, and that type of thing, bugs and stuff I got to figure out.
So how long have you had the app out now? Has it been out official?
I released it end of last year.
Okay.
Kind of a soft release. I think the real kind of launch was mid-March. I was at a show in Texas, and that was kind of like the first launch. And then I had a press release go out. And since that time, since about mid-March, I've had about 4,000 downloads, something like that.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Nice.
That's pretty good.
Is that and the feedback you're getting? I guess what's the biggest positive you're hearing so far?
Well, people love it. So there's two types of pilots, and other people use it too. It's good for skydivers, and I get my snow plow guy uses it because it's the way it represents. It's just a very quick read. And one of the things about data visual communicating information is you do have to do it quickly and succinctly, and that's what it does. And so, it synthesizes all this information very quickly. So it's just a very quick read. So I got other people, lots of other people think it's cool and everything. But as far as pilots go, some guys get it right away and they love it. Other guys what the hell is this? A bunch of circles. It doesn't make any sense to them. But usually, if I could talk to them and say, well, it does this, this, and this, and they come round and they're actually pretty impressed. So. I got plenty of bad comments though on on the Apple Store. So
see, I told you.
I'll leave a positive for you.
Hey, how much does that cost?
It's $1 a month, basically $12 a year. So
awesome.
after the IRS takes their cut, and after Apple takes their cut, I'm left with about $5, which is just enough for a cup of expensive
latte. There you go.
And that's my goal, is to kind of get every day of the year filled. And
so you get a free cup of coffee every day. Well, good for you, man.
Thank you for tuning in to the Stormfront Freaks podcast. You can watch our bi-weekly show live on youtube.com/stormfrontfreaks and download the audio version on your favorite podcast player. For links to our Patreon team of exclusive benefits, show notes, past shows, new videos, merchandise, and more, visit our website at stormfrontfreaks.com. While you're there, check out our interactive chaser radar from our friends at zoomradar.com. If you'd like to contact us with questions or make comments about the show, shoot us an email to questions@stormfrontfreaks.com or follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. Search for Stormfront Freaks. We'd love to hear from you. Join us next time and tell a friend about the Stormfront Freaks podcast.